The next morning, I saw on the news that this girl's body was found in the woods somewhere. So that night, I had already been in New York City for a little while already. So as I crossed the bridge, the Manhattan Bridge, I believe, I received a request for a trip. And usually, you don't get any information as to how far the trip is. So you have to go pick up the passenger, then you know where you're supposed to go and how long it's going to take. And sometimes they will give you a warning if a trip is supposed to take over 45 minutes to complete, but they don't give you any more information about it. So I get to the pickup location. It was a building called the Brooklyner, but I don't remember the exact address. Now, I sat there for maybe 5 minutes, but no one came outside. So I decided to text the client and ask her if she was still interested in the trip. But the client responded with a very long and weird text message. She basically explained to me that the person I was supposed to transport was intoxicated and she needed medical attention. She told me that I was supposed to take somebody to the rehab center. So I called the client back and I explained to her that I would agree to take the passenger to the rehab center and everything would be okay. She could trust me, the girl was in good hands, and all that without even knowing how far I was supposed to drive. A few minutes later, the passenger came downstairs and she looked a little bit odd because she was probably 19 years old. She had a t-shirt on, no shoes, no pants, and later on I found out she had no underwear. As soon as she got inside the car, I walked around to get in the driver's seat. But the security guard of the building she lived in walked outside and knocked on my window. So I rolled the window down and I asked him, I said, what can I do for you? He said, actually somebody just called the front desk and told us that this trip is canceled and the girl is supposed to return into her apartment. I said, well, that's weird because the client could have just called me or just canceled the trip right there and I would have taken her back to the lobby and went about my business. So why would they call you? So you need to give me more information because I have no idea who called you and I have no idea if that person is the same person who requested the trip. So he said, okay, I'm going to go back inside and get more information for you, but just wait for me. I said, all right. 5 minutes later, it didn't come out. So I decided to call the client again. And she told me that she never gave such an order. She never called the front desk. So I said, okay, that's what I thought. So I take off and I start the trip at the same time to see where I'm going. And that's when my phone did something really weird because the map started to zoom out. On the GPS screen, I started to see more and more lanes. Within a few seconds, I was able to see the state of New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and the destination address said 151 Main Street in Cummington, Massachusetts. To me, she obviously made a zip code mistake because sometimes you type an address, but Main Street, there's a bunch of Main Streets everywhere. So she probably didn't mention the city or the zip code. So I needed to call her again to make sure that she fixed the address. So I proceeded to call her using the application, but before I could speak to her, the passenger's cell phone rang. She picked up, answered, and then she handed me the phone and she said, hey, somebody wants to talk to you. I said, well, that's okay. That's probably my client trying to call me back. So I canceled the call process on my cell phone and then I took her phone and I answered. But then there was a man voice on the other side asking me who I was. So I returned the question. I said, who are you? You called me. And he said, sir, you have my daughter in your car and you better take my daughter back where you found her right now. And I'm like, I don't know you, sir. I don't know why you're calling me to tell me this, but you probably need to call her mom or whoever this lady is who requested the trip and make sure that you guys are on the same page. Then you call me. But I'm not going to sit here and have a conversation with somebody that I'm not doing business with. And he said, well, I don't care what you say. You better take my daughter back or else. I said, listen, it's not even like I'm happy about the address that I see on the screen because nobody wants to drive from New York City to Massachusetts with one passenger and then drive back with an empty car. So I'm trying to help here because apparently nobody cares. And as I was arguing with the father on the phone, the client called me back on my phone. So I answered, and now I was on the phone with two people at the same time and driving. And I told the client, I said, the father of the girl is threatening me on the phone and I don't like the way it sounds. So you better contact him and make sure that everybody's on the same page. Otherwise, I'm going to walk because I don't want to get caught up in some family drama. I don't want to get accused of doing anything that I didn't. And that's when I started taking the screenshots on my cell phone to make sure that I could protect myself just in case somebody accuses me of doing something that I didn't. The client said, well, this is not her father, that's her boyfriend, and he doesn't want her to get help. And I'm like, who am I supposed to trust now? How do you know this? It's not like you're sitting there with him. She said, well, is he still on the line? I said, yeah, he's still on the line. And she said, okay, in this case, tell me whose name is on the phone screen. So I took the girl's phone and I read the name on the screen, and the name said 1 and 2 more things. And I was like, this can't be her father, because I don't know anyone who labels their father as 1 and 2 more things on their cell phones. It's literally a sentence. It's like an incomplete sentence. So I immediately assumed that this guy was a liar and some kind of, pimp, dealer, or whatever kind of boyfriend controlling her. I immediately hung up on him, and he kept calling back, and I rejected the phone calls. Then I turned the girl's phone off. And I told the lady, I said, okay, now I trust you, I understand. And I told the lady, I said, now I understand that you're telling me the truth, but you still need to fix that address because it takes me all the way to Massachusetts. And then she asked me, she said, is it 151 Main Street in Cummington? I said, yeah, that's what it says. She said, yeah, that's the right address. I'm like, what is this? So somebody decided that it was a good idea to call a car to take a girl who needs to go to a rehab center all the way to Massachusetts. And no one even came downstairs to make sure that she got into the right car. So at this moment, I had 2 options. I could take her back to her apartment, drop her off, and then keep working like a normal person, make $400 or $500 that night, and go home. But then I wasn't sure if I could live with myself if the next morning I saw on the news that this girl's body was found in the woods somewhere, because this woman would probably keep calling more and more people until somebody decided to accept the trip, but then with different intentions. So I said, okay, I will take her to the rehab center. And she said, you sure? I said, no problem. You can count on me. I'll make sure she gets there. So I started driving towards my destination, which is 3.5 to 4 hours north of New York. So right after I passed Yonkers, I was on 87 North on the highway doing probably 60 to 65 miles an hour. And that's when the passenger started rolling the window down. She was behind me on the right side. So she rolled the window down in the rain. She stuck half of her body outside and she started puking. I'm hoping that she doesn't fall off the vehicle, which she didn't. So she sits back in the car and she told me that she was cold. And I was like, of course you're cold. You just roll the window down at 60 miles an hour and it's raining. So what do you expect? And it's November. So I decided to give her my sweater. And as I turned around to give it to her, I almost had a heart attack because this girl looked scary. She had puke on her face. She had puke on her hair. She was white. She had long hair. So she had puke everywhere on her face. And she looked like one of those actresses in horror movies, like the one that they dress in all white and somehow they never die and they follow you everywhere. She looked exactly like that. So I kept driving, and a few minutes later, she started moving around in the back seat. Like she couldn't just lay down and stay still. She would just struggle and moan and groan and make some weird noises. And to me, it was just temporary and it was going to end, but it lasted, longer than I expected. And at some point, she threw up in the car right behind me, and then she urinated on herself. And at this point, mind you, it's raining. I can't roll the windows down, and the smell is so noxious. Now I'm starting to regret my decision to take this girl to a rehab center, because it's not even like I'm helping her. I'm not even helping myself. And the smell is really bad. I can't even stop to do anything because she kept trying to open the doors, but as long as the car is not on park, doors don't open. So I can't really stop the car and, try to clean anything. So I had to keep driving. I'm not an expert in taking care of people who suffer from drug addiction, but one thing that I know is that they can choke on their vomit when they overdose. And this girl just threw up behind me, so I decided to try something to make sure that she wouldn't choke on her vomit, which is just reach back with my right hand and shake her from time to time to make sure that she would stay up. So I did it maybe twice or three times, and I would say the fourth time I reached back to shake her, but then I felt skin. I turned around and she was completely naked. The t-shirt that she had on was the only piece of clothing that she had, nothing else. And this t-shirt was nowhere to be found at this point. And I'm thinking, if I ever get pulled over, this is not gonna end well, because what am I supposed to tell the officer? Hey officer, I'm just driving from New York to Massachusetts at 11 p.m. with a naked girl in the backseat. She doesn't even know my name, but hey, I'm a good guy. No, I don't think it's gonna work. Plus my first language is French. So if I panic in front of a cop, my English just flies out the window and now I sound more suspect than I look. I couldn't even stop to urinate because if I stopped the car, the door's unlocked, she would try to go out, and now I'm in more trouble. So I had to use a bottle of Gatorade to relieve myself as I was driving. But then I made a stupid mistake and tried to dump that urine out of the window, which didn't end well because I ended up having my entire arm covered in urine. But I was like, hey, it can't get any worse. I'm already a suspect driving between states with a naked girl in the back seat.